Good morning. Good morning. It's a beautiful day again in Daly City, and I see a lot of great smiles, beauty, and handsome people. Great to reconnect with you today. And I'd like to share the gospel in the spirit of love. There's a story about a retiring priest. After retiring for 30 years of servanthood, the priest decided to dedicate the rest of his life to become a funeral director. When asked why he chose this vocation, he said, "I spent 10 years trying to straighten out Danny, and he's still an alcoholic. Then I spent 3.5 years trying to straighten out Andrew and Angie's marriage problems, and they ended up getting a divorce. Later, I tried for 2 years to help Larry kick his drug habit, and he's still an addict. It's been a difficult year for me trying to get them obey. Now, at the funeral home, when I straighten them out, they stay straight. Perfect obedience. Payback time." The gospel story today is a discourse between Jesus and the religious leaders of his time. You see, it was the job of the elders and priests to teach the people about God's will. In this scenario, Jesus was trespassing on their turf. He was teaching the people right there in the temple precincts. So they questioned his authority, just as Manang Marietta had mentioned. Who was this carpenter of Nazareth to be teaching in the temple of the most holy God? They asked, "By what authority are you doing these things? And who gave you this authority?" Jesus wisely answered them, "I also will ask you a question, and if you tell me the answer, then I will tell you by what authority I do these things." He asked, "The baptism of John, whose authority was that? From heaven or from earth?" Aha, we say, stalemate. Trapped in their own dishonesty and insincerity, the Pharisees grasped for an answer. They asked themselves, if we say from heaven, he will say to us, "Why then did you not believe John?" But if we say from men, we are afraid of the multitude, for all hold that John was a prophet. So they answered Jesus, "We do not know." And he said to them, "Neither will I tell you by what authority I do these things." Such a clever Jesus. He set the Pharisees in a lose-lose situation. He knows they fear the people, and he expects them to remain non-committal when they said, "We do not know." Then, to trap them further, Jesus told them a story about a son who did the Father's will, despite refusing at first, and a son who simply paid the Father a lip service. The crowds were turning from sin to do God's will. The religious leaders, the Pharisees and scribes, on the other hand, were just giving God lip service. In the end, Jesus was questioning their authority to teach about a God they really were not serving. Which all begs the question, are you doing the Father's will? Which child are you? Which am I? We all rebel from time to time like the first child by giving our own excuses, selfishness, and walk the other way, but later roll up our sleeves and clean up our mess and insincerities. But at the end of the day, do we really try to do God's will? Or do we simply pay God a lip service. Jesus is being practical here. It's not what you say or originally intend to do that matters. The question is, in the end, what do we end up doing? Do we seek to do the Father's will, or are we just giving God a lip service? You see, I have always been a person who would not say no to a request, perhaps because I don't want to be disrespectful or not wanting to hurt the feeling of anyone. Although there are times that I would say no, but ending up doing it anyway. For several years, I have seen this trait or character with my children. I have observed that my eldest son Joshua would always say yes upon the request of his sisters, cousins, or friends, even just to squeeze them to his schedule. Last night I asked my youngest daughter, Haley, to read one of the scripture readings for today, and her reply was, no. But after a few minutes, she said, okay, Daddy. Perhaps she realized that it is the first Sunday of the month, or that she felt I needed her support. There is obedience and trust in doing a request. Have you had those moments of saying no to a request, then change your mind to say yes due to compassion or realization of the importance of the request? Have you had that feeling of relief and being blessed because you said yes? That feeling of happiness because you stretch out your hands to help a fallen brother or sister, or a church for that matter. The gospel today tells us of a story like that, of our own experience. An owner of a vineyard had two sons, and neither one of them was perfect. The first son said no to his father, but then changed his mind and did what his father asked. And the second son said yes to his father's request, but did nothing. A perfect son would have said yes to his father and then done the father's will, but few of us are perfect. That is why for us, the hero of today's parable is the first son, who originally said no, but then changed his mind and went to work in the vineyard. The good news of the parable is that with God's help, we can change the no into a yes. This movement from no to yes is a fundamental Christian pattern that is routinely present in its scripture. You see, Peter denied Jesus, but later repents. Thomas refused to accept Jesus' resurrection, but then becomes a believer. Paul persecuted the early followers of Jesus, but then converts and becomes one of the great apostles of the church. In the later generations, the same movement continues. Augustine lived his life in debauchery, but then became one of the great spiritual teachers of our history. Francis of Assisi, whom we're going to be celebrating next Sunday, began his life in privilege and self-indulgence, but then changed to live a life of simplicity and service. I don't want to compare myself with the religious giants, but when I said yes to embrace the ministry given to me in this beautiful church in 2008, I never expected the enormous responsibilities waiting to be given attention and love. I'm so glad and blessed that I said yes, because I was surrounded by a loving and supportive family and members in this place. I've grown so much with you and in God's wisdom and grace. There are challenges, yes, but we have walked and talked and continue to grow in every way by sharing our needs in body, mind, and spirit. You see, it was said that the service to God begins at the end of the Eucharist. When we receive the body and blood of Christ, we are commissioned and blessed to go out to the world to be a witness of the love of God. Let us therefore say yes, yes to God, and do what we are called to do. For we are the ambassadors of Christ. We are commissioned to call others to God, so that we are all in the same road to where God leads us. Will you say yes to God? Shall we say yes to God? Yes to God! And we're going to do that